Anna Bilinska was a 19th century Polish realist painter, considered to be the first Polish woman artist who achieved international recognition. Bilinska was born in 1854 in Zlatopil, which at the time was a frontier town of the Russian Empire and is today part of Ukraine. Her father was Polish, and Bilinska would later joke that she had a Cossack's temperament but a Polish heart. She spent most of her childhood in Zlatopil, and then her family moved to central Russia, where she received her first artistic training. In 1875, aged 21 years old, Bilinska moved to Warsaw. Her parents wanted her to pursue a career as a pianist, an activity which was seen as acceptable for a woman of her class at the time. But she defied her parents' wishes and became a painter, a far less socially acceptable career path. Around 1877, Bilinska started to exhibit her work publicly and sell her work, using the money to hire her own studio. She would later explain, "I must be independent. I believe in my abilities and have a love for this work. Were I to encounter obstacles, I would despise them. Now I have liberty. I am as happy as nobody else." In the early 1880s, Bilinska travelled to Munich, Salzburg, Vienna and northern Italy with her close friend Klementyna Krasowska, where she was able to visit prestigious museums and galleries. It was on these travels that she also met the painter Wojciech Grabowski, with whom she fell in love and would have a secret engagement. In 1882, Bilinska settled in Paris. She lived there in a tiny apartment and studied with a group of women artists at the Académie Julian, where she would also later be a teacher. It was one of the few art schools in Europe which was open to female students at the time. It used the same teaching methods and sometimes the same teachers as the prestigious École des Beaux-Arts, which allowed Bilinska and her peers to develop an excellent command of painting techniques. They were also given access to life models, including male ones, although the males still had to cover their private parts. Two notable artists studying with Bilinska at the time include Russian artist Marie Bashkirtsev and English artist Emmeline Dean. Emmeline Dean painted this portrait of Bilinska just after Bilinska's father had died, a devastating period in the artist's life. At the time, it was highly unusual for women artists to make and exhibit formal portraits of other women artists. Today, the painting is one of the most celebrated works in the Victoria Art Gallery in Bath, England. Bilinska's first international success came with this self-portrait made in 1887. Her pose in front of a model's backdrop seems to state that she is her own model, a new self-portrait pose at the time. Her direct gaze and confident posture capture her desire for independence. Let's take a closer look at two other paintings that Bilinska made in the 1880s. This painting was made in 1884. The exoticism of the sitter, indicated by her gold hoop earrings and necklace, yellow headscarf, exposed breast, and Japanese fan, is a typical trait of late 19th century European artistic depictions of black women. It was probably made as part of the art school's programme, which involved making oil studies of character types. For this purpose, black female life models were often portrayed in exotic costumes. Here, the model is seen from below, with a slightly uncomfortable expression on her face. In World War II, the painting was stolen from the National Museum of Warsaw and remained missing until it appeared in auction in 2011, when it was returned to the museum. This painting was made in 1886 at a very difficult period in the artist's life. Bilinska had a nervous breakdown following the death of both her father and her close friend Klementyna Krasowska. A few months later, her fiancé also died. In the midst of this profound grief and depression, Bilinska stayed with her friend in Pourville in Normandy for several months. It was there that this painting was made. It shows a mother and her child seen from behind on a grey pebbly beach overlooking the English Channel. The space between the mother and child, separated by the expanse of sea, has been interpreted as a sign of mourning. The grey colour palette and gloominess of the scene creates an undeniable melancholy. Until 1892, Bilinska continued to live, work and teach in France. Then she married and returned to Warsaw with her husband. She wanted to open an art school for women in Warsaw, inspired by the one she had been to in Paris, but tragically she died of heart disease in 1893 at the age of only 36. Nonetheless, her career still inspired the next wave of Polish female painters to seek out an education in Paris. Partly because of her early death and short career, and also in large part because of the historical prejudices against women, Bilinska's work is not well known, not even in Poland. Fortunately, this is starting to change. In 2021, the National Museum in Warsaw held a major exhibition of her work. The National Museum has said her works were presented at the most important European exhibitions and appreciated by critics from many countries. In the same year, a specialist mural company collaborated with Poland's Academy of Fine Arts to create a commemorative mural in Warsaw, a reinterpretation of Bilinska's self-portrait.